The next thing we might want to do is be able to actually toggle these to-do items. Let's assume now that our app needs some state to manage the to-dos. So we can say const to-dos and set to-dos equals use state. And our initial to-dos are just going to be, let's say initial to-dos, and we'll rename this to initial to-dos. Great. And just to see that this is working initially, yeah, it's still showing us as our initial to-dos. So perhaps we want to create a function to be able to toggle our to-dos. Let's call this ToggleToDo. And we're going to take a reference to a selected to-do. And we have to somehow use our setToDos method to change our to-dos. Let's first create a new to-dos array. And this is going to be the to-dos array mapped. And for each to-do item, we can say if to-do is equal to selected to-do, we can return a new element that has text. Actually, we can just return a new element that is the spread of the to-do item, and then completed is going to be the opposite of to-do.complete. So yeah, we're going to be able to use ToggleToDo to either say it is complete or it is no longer complete. So if this if condition is not met, we can just return our to-do as it was. Great. So finally, we can set to-dos with our new to-dos. Perfect. Of course, we're getting this error saying that we really should not have this implicit any type. So we can say that our selected to-do is, of course, of type to-do. Perfect. So next, we're going to want to use this ToggleToDo and pass it to our to-do list items. So as we add it to our to-do list items here, we are going to notice that we are now getting errors here because ToggleToDo is not an expected prop for our to-do list item. So we should go back over to our to-do list item and say, well, we now expect to get a ToggleToDo prop. And this is going to take some sort of selected to-do of type to-do. And we're not doing anything with the result, so we can say it returns void. Of course, this is now redundant, so perhaps we can say what our ToggleToDo function looks like in our types.d.ts file. So we will say type ToggleToDo equals, and just repeat this this whole function that takes a to-do and we don't use the output. So now we can remove this and just use ToggleToDo. Furthermore, in our app.tsx, we can go back to ToggleToDo here and say this is of type ToggleToDo. And then we don't really need to specify that selected to-do is of type to-do because we get that from this type declaration. Awesome. So if we go into our to-do list item now, well, we are going to want to toggle our to-do when the input element is changed. So we can add an onChange handler here. So we can say when this is changed, we will toggle our to-do and pass the current to-do to it. Of course, ToggleToDo isn't defined, so let's make sure we destructure it. Perfect. So let's go back to our application and start clicking. Hey, it works. Of course, individually listing these to-do items within our app.tsx isn't ideal. And if we look back at our mockup, we remember that we have this sort of concept of the whole to-do list itself. So let's go ahead and create a to-do list component that'll take any number of to-dos and render the to-do list item. We will touch TodoList.tsx, And within TodoList, we can import React from React. By the way, there are snippets that you can download that'll help you generate React functional components. And I certainly advise that you use these helpers, but for now we are just going to type everything out because continuously typing these things can be good practice. So let's say export const TodoList, and this will have some sort of props. And what do we want to do? Well, let's think that our props will probably be a number of to-dos. And so we know that our to-dos are going to be within some sort of unordered list. And then we can say todos.map. For each to-do item, we can return TodoList item. And we can say to-do equals to-do. Okay, what errors are we getting here? Okay, we know that we also need to pass ToggleToDo. So since this component is going to be in our app component, we'll just go ahead and pass ToggleToDo down to our to-do list. So ToggleToDo equals ToggleToDo. Great, and so that satisfies this, but we don't know the shape of to-dos, we don't know ToggleToDo, and we don't have any description of what the props for to-do list looks like. So we know that this is going to be a React functional component, and we've got to pass some sort of generic. And of course, that generic is going to be the interface for our prop types. So we will say interface to-do list props, and we have to-dos. And this is an array of to-dos. And then we have ToggleToDo, and this will be of shape ToggleToDo. Finally, let's pass this as the generic, and we see that our app is now happy again. And so you can see that the linter is really directing us on what we need to complete here. So one more thing that I want to do before I forget is, of course, every to-do list item in this map is going to need a key. And so for simplicity, we'll just say the key is todo.text. And that'll make sure that React's diffing algorithm has something to go off of for this array. So let's go back to app.tsx, and instead of doing each to-do list item individually, let's clear these out, and let's give just the whole to-do list, and we'll say to-dos equals to-dos, and of course we need to pass ToggleToDo. So we'll say ToggleToDo equals ToggleToDo. Great. And one last thing is we're no longer using to-do list item, so we can remove it as an import. Save that. Okay. Now let's go back to our application, and we can see that our app is working still. Perfect.